The third keynote today will involve Tania Singer. Tania is a psychologist and neuroscientist, so a very different world. And she is currently the scientific head of the Social Neuroscience Lab of the Max Planck Society in Germany. Now, in that context, Tania works on a number of topics. In particular, she is the founder and principal investigator of the Resource Project, an enormous longitudinal study examining the impact of mental training on brain plasticity, mental and physical well-being, and also pro-social behavior. She is also working with economists on the topic of caring economics to see to what extent biology and psychology can inform new economic models and decision-making. I met Tania for the first time in Davos. She was presenting there her groundbreaking research on the difference between empathy and compassion, and also the different impact that these emotions are having in our brain. We've been very fortunate to continue a conversation since then, and I'm delighted that she is able to join us this morning. Tania is going to share some of her key research findings over the next 25, 30 minutes, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions. Tania, thank you for joining us, and you have our undivided attention.
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much for this kind introductory word. I'm happy to be speaking at IMD today, and I will share my screen now so that you can see my PowerPoint. So good morning, everybody in the world. I will talk, as Jean-François said, about the social brain and how to train actually the leader's brain in moving towards a more caring economics. And what I plan to do is to first introduce you a little bit into the broader framework of the caring economics framework we are doing this research in. Then I will talk about the Resource Project, which was introduced already, this huge, large-scale mental training study. I will show you that actually with a few minutes per day of mental training, going inside and training specific faculty, you can actually change the hardware of your brain. You can reduce your stress, you can improve global cooperation, and I will conclude by showing how that could be implemented into business and society. So let me start. We are doing a very interdisciplinary approach where we work with psychologists, neuroscientists, but also I have worked many years with and still working with macroeconomists and behavioral microeconomists. And the idea is to come and to develop new economic models which are closer to the reality of what we humans really are about. So that's, for example, Dennis Noah. He was the president of the Institute of Global Economics, is now a professor at the Hertie Stiftung in Berlin and Oxford. And we are working towards, you could say this is a very easy sketch of how neoclassicistic economic theory views decision-making. You have these fixed preferences, which are context insensitive, time insensitive, endogenously giving, and they determine the choices you will do, and you have some abstract rational beliefs about the other. Now, psychology, and that's just really a sketch, is much more complicated in the term of how they see decisions are made. So according to that, we have different motivational system in us who can, depending on the context in which we are, they are evolutionary built systems which have evolutionary function, and depending on the context in which we are, they will drive different decisions, more cooperative, competitive, altruistic, threat decision. So let me talk about some of the motives which are determining decision-making in humans. And for example, we have a class of motives and motivational system we call incentive focused. They are very much like achievement motivation, or the motivation to consume, or the motivation for status and power. There are three different motivation. And you could say in most of our big businesses, and also in science, but also more and more predominantly in education, these motivation are dominating the goals of the system. Yeah, we want to be the best, we want to achieve, we want to consume, we want to have status and power. But then there is a danger if we are not always the best and always high performing, then the threat focused system, which is also evolutionary very old, can be chronically alarmed and chronically activated, which means that we will be in anger or in fear a lot. And if you chronically, are in threat focus system are evolutionary, of course, very important because you wouldn't survive without. But if it's chronically activated, you will have diseases, burnout, and a lot of the cultural diseases we see. So here is another motive class, which is very important, but a little bit too much forgotten in our modern society. They are socially focused motives. So the motive to affiliate, to work in an in-group, to belong to a group, but also the motive to care about others. And that's two very evolutionary, very old motives, and we share them with the animals, and they are oxytocin and opiate-driven systems, whereas the incentive focus very dopamine-driven systems. So you can, for example, activate, the care system by a massage, and that will induce oxytocin and relax you. So what is important is that we find a balance between these systems, because if we are only in one motivation 24 hours a day, our health will suffer and our balance will suffer, and we will be on a macroscopic level as much as on an individual level developing diseases. So the question is now, if we take this psychologically, neuroscientifically driven model as base, how can we activate more the care system, the affiliation system, to produce more pro-social cooperation? And either you do it in the lab as we have done it, and so then you can show that by priming unconsciously the care system, there are methods how you can prime this motivational system, you will increase monetary altruism, cooperation, and giving. While if you prime unconsciously the power motivation system, you can also do that without people being aware of it, you will see, like here, that conflict, decision-making, which is conflictual and which has a lot to do with altruistic punishment and fairness, will be increased. And obviously, I think every business knows that it's good to have cooperative solutions. So basically, doing something to activate the care system might be very, very beneficial to the individual and the macroscopic. So we ask, okay, we cannot unconsciously prime people. That is also, we can do that in the lab, but not in real world. So how about mental training, which activates care, compassion, empathy, and these qualities? And this is where the research project comes in. It was funded by the European Commission and Max Planck Society and a lot of other funds. And it wanted to really address global problems on a macro and individual scale. We wanted to see whether we can do something about increasing burnout rates, increasing stress, increasing depression already in the youngest of us, in the 19 to 25-year-old. They are feeling the most lonely and they start to be depressed and even suicide themselves, exponentially growing. So it's alarming. And then obviously we know we have a lot of global crises to deal with. And we need to change our internal mindset to face all these global challenges. So can we, through mental inner training, increase social intelligence, social cohesion, global cooperation, increase mental health and well-being, and reduce stress? Because mental health will become the topic of the new age. And we're already seeing it. I have done, I'm about to do a COVID relevant study where we measured the stress levels in Berliners. And you can see that the virus is one thing, but the threat, the panic and the anxiety and the mental health problem resulting from them are huge epidemics too. And we have to deal with that. So we developed a 9 months training program with three months modules, and they were called Presence. And the first module focused on how to train your attention, how to bring your mind in the present moment, how to stabilize your mind, which usually, because we are so multitasking and we have these cell phones all the time and 500 emails bombarding us every day, so our attention gets fluggery, no? The evolution has not made attention for iPhones, no? So we need to stabilize our attention and go back to the present moment. And so that is what we train 3 months with different mental, also kind of mindfulness-based exercises, but it's all very secular. Then we have the care and compassion system. And here we train these social affiliative motivation of compassion, empathy, care, gratitude, pro-social cooperation, pro-social motivation. And the third module is a very cognitive one. And it's very important too, because we train the ability to take a meta perspective, a metacognitive view on what you're thinking in other people's beliefs. What are other people believing? Other cultural backgrounds, perhaps from other different religious backgrounds. How can we creep in their mind, even though we have perhaps totally different beliefs? Okay, so we have these retreats, 3 days training at the beginning of a module and 17 different specific teacher and an app. And with the app, we allow them to also do 10 minutes partner exercise to increase in real life their social skills, empathy, perspective taking, and dealing with stress. So these are just to show you the 2 exercises people are asked to do in each module, 30 minutes a day. Now we ask them, if possible, Sunday is off, but if possible, you do 20 minutes exercise and a 10 minutes exercise here with another partner. Depending on the module, the exercise will differ. And we record everything through the app. So we could, monitor the improvement of the people through the app they were using to do the mental exercise. And so now give me a moment to explain why do we actually separate this affective, emotional, compassion-based module from the more cognitive module. And that's actually rooted in neuroscience. And that's what Jean-François has already alluded to. We need to understand the difference between empathy and compassion. So empathy is nice, and if we would not have it, we would be psychopaths, no? So we need to resonate with the feelings of someone else. If someone is suffering, but also if someone is happy, we engage in empathic joy or we suffer with them. But it is not yet the whole equation, because empathy is feeling with, but it has the risk that it can end up into what we call empathic distress. So if you are too much suffering with the other and it becomes your own thing, because perhaps it brings all trauma up in you, old fears, old memories, whatever, or you are already so exhausted that the suffering of the other will become your suffering. It's of no use for nobody, because you will become self-related, negative if you have empathic distress all the time, like healthcare workers have, but also very busy people in businesses. Then you have burnout as a result. It doesn't help, no? So we are teaching people how to move from a healthy empathic response into compassion. And compassion is rooted in the motivation of care. And it comes with feeling of warmth, of concern. It's like the Pietà, this very, very famous Pietà who is holding Jesus, like this motherly caring principle. So you are like really wanting the welfare of the other. It's a very strong motivation for the common good of the other. So it is coming with positive emotion. And we have done a lot of research now showing that actually training empathy increases this kind of pain-related affective responses in the brain, like negative emotions. And then if you train people in compassion, you see the red networks lighting up, and they are resilience networks. They are networks which come with protective factors of positive emotion and motivation to help others and strengths. So because we know these networks are different, we are training these things. So, and I'm always saying, instead of saying a more empathic leadership, I would advocate recognize your empathy and then move towards a more compassionate leadership, because compassionate leadership is the strength you need to have the courage and the positive, resilient attitude towards life, which allows you to confront troubleshooting every day and problems of the world and other people. And why do we have the green module, the cognitive module, is because we know that the social brain is composed of another network, which we call cognitive perspective taking or theory of mind. And this network is about going cognitively, rationally into the thoughts of the other, mind reading. And why do we need that? The care system and compassion is very good for your in-group. But if you have a conflict with someone else, or you don't understand the religious beliefs, or you judge them even, you have to do these cognitive perspective to understand that other people have other beliefs and that their decisions are rational if they hold these beliefs, that these beliefs might be opposite of what you're holding for beliefs, but you need to go into the belief system of the other. And for that, you need to inhibit your own beliefs. And this perspective taking is relying on a different network in the brain. So, you see here the green network in the brain is this ability to mind read and to understand cognitive beliefs of other people. Here, the red networks in the brain, these limbic, paralimbic networks, they allow for empathy and compassion, for this motivation to help. And you need both actually to move in global cooperation, to become a global citizen and to become a global leader. So we are training these different capacity. We are training how to move from empathy to compassion and how to do perspective taking in these different modules. So now, of course, you will ask, does it work? You know, we had 300 people from 20 to 55-year-old, like old brains. No, can we change these old brains? Can we learn new tricks to old dogs? And yes, the answer is we can. And that was revolutionary, because we were trained still as neuroscientists in my generation that with 25, brains get thinner, but they don't get thicker with training. They get age-related thinning, no atrophy. At the end, we are just demented. And now we could show that engaging in 3 different training types, attention, after 3 months of attention, you increase your attention faculty and you have an increase in gray matter volume in the prefrontal cortex, which is very, very important for metacognitive monitoring. Then after 3 months of emotional, compassion, and motivational training, you have this other increase in the empathy and compassion networks I showed you. So the same person now increases networks in their brain, which are important for compassion, and compassion increases. And after 3 months of this cognitive perspective training, you see that social intelligence is increasing on a behavior. And with that, areas in the brain which are supporting this perspective taking ability. I showed you them before. So it really matters what you practice. And depending on which practice you engage with each day, just 20 minutes is not a lot. It's like a long toothbrushing, no? You will basically be able to change the hardware of your brain in networks which are responsible for these functions. So I think this is extraordinary, and it is not very expensive. You have to learn it first, but you don't need pills. You can do that in every minute of your life, in the tube, in the airplane, wherever you are. You can just go inside and do these practices once you have learned them. And now perhaps to start 2 more data points before I end. Can you reduce social stress? No, we have a pandemic of social stress diseases, and they come with huge health threat. So we tested that, and we tested the cortisol, the hormone, the stress hormone in the blood, which gets activated after a social stressor. When you feel like not good enough, you feel overwhelmed, you feel too much uncertainty. At the moment, our world suffers from social stress because of uncertainty, because of every day not knowing how the next day will turn up, changing all your work, losing your work, having to do. So this uncertainty produces huge amount of cortisol stress. And now the good news is that with attention mindfulness training alone, you can't reduce the stress. However, with the social brain training, with the training which involves here the 10 minutes partner exercise, you can reduce your stress level to 51% of your previous level. So it's a huge amount of stress reduction, which you can do if every day you train yourself to listen empathically, non-judgmental, to take the perspective of another, to really share humanity with others, and then you buffer yourself from the detrimental effects of fear of not being good enough, not achieving enough, and so on. So I think this is really impressive. And last but not least, we used game theoretical economic games where you played for real money with other people. And we saw that pure altruism, like the propensity to donate money, to cooperate with money in these games, increases after the compassion module alone. So the attention module increased attention, but not altruism and global cooperation. So again, showing the power of care and compassion. Always, if you look at the whole training study, compassion is a very strong driver of all these positive effects. So let me summarize what I said to you. I showed you that actually mental training works, even in people with, on average in our sample, 43 years of age up to 55, but probably even later. We just didn't do the study. It really matters what you practice. So mindfulness, meditation, mental training are umbrella terms, but then like in sports, if you would ask someone, what does sport do to your body? A sports specialist would say, it depends which sport you do, whether you play tennis or whether you are riding, or whether in a gym you are doing, arm muscles or feet muscle. You're not expecting that doing exercises of your arm muscle every day will improve your legs. And so we saw that this is true for the brain. This is true for our mind. When you train attention, you can improve attention. If you, however, exercise care and compassion every day, you improve cooperation, altruism, and compassion. And if by partner exercise, you basically train mind reading, perspective taking, cognitive perspective taking, you can increase social intelligence. And that shows up in the brain, the different circuitry in the brain, which allow attention to happen, which allow, empathy, compassion to work. They get thicker. You are changing the hardware of your brain. You are reducing social stress, and you are getting better to know the signals of your body, and that helps decision-making, intuition. So coming back to caring economics, we can actually, through mental training, we can shift our balance inside to a more healthy inside balance of motivational system. But macroscopically speaking, by changing institutional design and improving, incentives for care and cooperation, we can boost altruism and cooperation in our system, reduce stress, and have much more mental health. So I would say we should stop thinking that the only change agent are nudging changes in law or changes in institutional design. I think we have to start taking equally seriously change agent which comes from within. So for new work, you need inner work. For a new society, you need inner work. To face the challenges of modern global world, we need to even train that in our schools with children, because their brains are so plastic. They just like sponges. So we do that. We try now to adapt these scientifically based mental training programs to different arms of society, to healthcare, to businesses, to leadership, to education. And we are giving masterclass, like from inner work to societal change, how to train your brain, so that people with very good teachers can actually learn these techniques, so that they become their own master of training their brain every day if they want, But before you have to learn it. No, with like every skill, you need an introduction by skilled trainer. So I hope that this will become more prevalent also in the global business world. And thank you so much for your attention this morning. I'm very much looking forward to the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tania. So we have one question coming. Before we get to that question, which is an excellent question, I just want to hammer home one of your key messages. Mm-hmm. And that's that you took a range of individuals. I smiled when you said the oldest one was 55. But I thought next time try to get a few old geezers as well. But you took 300 individuals, different age group. For 3 months, they did 20 minutes of individual exercise a day, plus hopefully 10 minutes of paired exercise. So it's at most 30 minutes a day. And then you look into their brain and you see physical differences.
Yes.
I think this is extremely important for everybody to process. This is not, I feel better, or I convinced myself that I feel better. This is, you look into the brain and you see physical differences. So, so this is really this brain plasticity idea, which is in the title of your talk. And as you said, many of us from previous generations were trained with the idea that you're born with a certain number of neurons, and then as you go, it just goes down. I think what your work is showing is we can actually influence the thickness of the neural connection density in our brain. So very, very important, I think, perspective. Now, you've said we train mindfulness, presence, we train perspective taking, we train compassion. Could you take one example of practice that you teach people for presence/mindfulness, one exercise for compassion and one for perspective taking?
Yes. So I would say with the presence, this is always the module you want to start with. You want to stabilize your distracted brain. And so, for example, the classic exercise, breathing, a breathing meditation, which is like, very secular. So you focus on your own breath. Because the thing is, the breath, you always carry it with you, no? So you can do it in the tube. You don't need any technical device. The breath is there as long as you are breathing. So you focus inside on your breath. And whenever you notice that your mind wanders to the last day, to what you're planning, to the food, gently you just say, okay, we bring it back to the breath. And so you learn how to bring your mind, which always wants to go somewhere thinking, back to the object of your focus, which is the breath. And that's a very classical, exercise you find in lots of contemplative tradition, but also in the West, also in clinical approaches of the West. So that is something easy everyone can do, but it's not as easy as you think, because you will notice how much your mind wanders away all the time. And the important thing is that then you don't beat yourself up, no? You don't say, oh my God, I was distracted again. I can't do it. I'm too stupid. It's totally normal. You just go back and you say, oh, I'm learning, I'm exercising. I can't expect my brain being super attentive just after 10 minutes, no? So you do it every day a little bit. And when the mind wanders, you just say, okay, back. And now for compassion, for example, this partner exercise. We would call each other, for example, if we were pairing. And then I say, Jean-François, hello, tell me a situation of the last in your work where you felt really difficult emotion and stress. And how did that feel in your body? And then you are contemplating how stress is actually manifesting in you, in your behavior, in your voice, in your body. So peu à peu, you become more aware what stress is doing in your body and when you are stressed and what are the triggers. And then So
it starts with self-awareness.
Exactly. It starts with the awareness, what actually is going on in your body when you have negative emotions. And then you get better and better, and then you can already see the trigger coming, and then they don't trigger you as much. You have this gap. So you can practice that with another partner, with a witness every day. And that will also get you very much self-aware about your days. No, the people start saying, oh my God, this is actually really stressing me out. I wasn't aware of it because I'm never pausing. And so you become, and then we also, in the same exercise, we train gratitude. For what are you grateful this day? Because people tend to focus on negativity, and to build up the care system, no, to activate the care system with loving kindness, care, and compassion. We train people to focus on these positive, resilient emotion and to identify. And I don't know, in France, on dit toujours, the people, they complain a lot. No, in Germany, they're angry a lot. So anyhow, this helps you to get into a more positive focus on what actually is good in life, in your life. So, and for the perspective taking, there is one exercise where we teach people, instead of thinking their thoughts, to look at it like a bird and thinking, oh, this is what I'm thinking to myself. Oh, I am judging myself. Interesting, so not to engage into the process of thinking, but to watch what you are telling yourself every day. And this allows you to get a meta perspective. It's like this. And then we also have partner exercise where you have to take the perspective of another. You have to guess the belief system of another. That's very fun. And that allows the social intelligence to progress.
One of the questions is, thank you for this, Tania. One of the questions is, do you have a book to recommend? At the end of this session and on the spot me, we will make available a number of possible resources and places for you to check these things. Very good question regarding the order of the steps. You started with presence, right? Because I guess presence is a prerequisite to some extent for the other two. Is that right?
Yes, we started because somehow, if your mind is totally scattered and cannot even hold 5 minutes of inner attention, it's difficult to do these more complex mental training exercise where you open your heart, where you have to imagine people, where you have to take the perspective. So it's very good to start with what we call basic mindfulness as the base. And that allows you to learn how to go inside and stabilize your mind, become calm, become more attentive, become more body aware. Because a lot of our syndromes in the modern world is that we are disconnected from our body. We are thinking here, blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, what is the body doing? We have no idea. And then it becomes ill. And then we are like, oh, why did it become ill? So we call that in terminology of science, interoceptive body awareness. And to become better in interocepting, like looking into your body, also predicts getting more healthy in terms of immunology, in terms of stress and so on. So these, like body scan is another example where you go with your attention through different parts of your body. So it trains your attention, but you also train to actually feel your body from inside. And that is a good basis for then, doing the more social mental training, which, like the affect and the perspective module. However, doesn't really matter whether you start with the perspective module or the affect module. They can be interchanged. They are just training two different networks in the brain, but they are both important. So
mindfulness / presence first.
Yes.
Because it enhances whatever the effect of whatever subsequent training you're going to do. Exactly. 2 questions related with how do you measure the changes in the brain, and with what mechanism, with what tools?
So we use fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging. These are the big scanners, these big tubes where sometimes when you have neurological examinations, you go into these into these magnetic scanners in the hospital. We have them for science, and so we can measure the blood flow in the scanner when participants doing certain tasks. So for example, we are implementing empathy tasks, perspective taking tasks, attention tasks while they are in the scanner, and we are measuring their attention to certain dots, or how they feel when they see suffering videos like BBC news videos, or how we give them social cognition, perspective taking tasks, and we're measuring their brain activity while they are doing these tasks. And then we're measuring that before and after each of the training modules. So we can see before and after. We can see the people who had never trained, because they should never have done anything like that. That was the entry criteria. And then we measure this. But we had 90 different measures. So we measured behavior on computer. We hooked them on, autonomic measure. We measured their hearts, their breathing function. So they were tested all around.
The changes that you saw in cortical thinning, in the density of the connections, how do you measure that? Is that different colors?
No, the colors is just for you to better see. So the colors is statistical makeup we do so that you can see, because our brain is not colored, is very grayish. It's like a rubber. What we are measuring is the gray matter increase of cells. So we can measure how this gray matter around the cells is increasing in thickness. So it's cortical thickness we measure in large scale network, not of a single neuron. When we do imaging, it's large-scale networks.
So this sounds quite precise. I mean, this is not you going...
No, it is very precise. We are going with millimeter, and we are doing really very precise cartographic of which area grows thicker before and after. And then we can do network analysis to see how the networks grow thicker together, because the brain codes in networks. It's never just one area. Okay. There is an empathy network. There is not an empathy area. There is a network which allows rational thinking. And so we are looking at these large-scale network and how the gray matter of the cells in this network grow together over training. It's very precise. It's very high level. It took 6 years to produce this data.
Now, we see this effect after 3 months or during and after 3 months of training. Well, 3 months, 9 months, I guess, in total.
In total.
Is the effect permanent, or do we need to continue to practice? I think a very good question.
Very good question. Yeah. I mean, we always say if you don't practice, you lose it. No, I mean, in plasticity is the same then for the muscles. No, like, for example, I became because of the COVID and the quarantine, nobody moves anymore, and we become a bit too unsportive. So it's the same thing. You can, if you stop training your brain, I think you can move back to your old habits. But obviously, the more this new attitude, when I say training compassion is not a fleeting emotion, it's an attitude towards the world. It is like what are your priorities? What are your intentions behind decision? What is your worldview on others? And the more you train that, at some point it becomes your character. No, at some point it really moves into the trait. We say that trait level. It becomes your personality, and then it is it's much more difficult to lose that again. No, let's see the Dalai Lama. No, he is not just. He has this resonating, compassionate attitude towards life, and obviously he is meditating every morning, but he wouldn't lose that again if he would not meditate 2 days. No. So
this is a very important point you just made, and you made also the analogy with sports. We all accept that if we don't go to the gym for a year, clearly we will lose some of the effects. And so we don't expect, well, I went to the gym today, now I'm done forever.
Exactly.
And it's the same with mental training, right?
Absolutely.
It requires some ongoing. A very important question. Today we talk about mindfulness, compassion. Tania, you and I remember a time where it was a bit borderline to discuss these things. I remember the first World Economic Forum meeting where I saw mindfulness being discussed. Let's be very frank. The people in the audience were the spouses of the CEOs.
Yeah.
I remember this very distinctly.
I know.
So tell us, are you still, so obviously there was skepticism before. How is this skepticism evolving? You were telling me before we started that you're starting to work with the European Commission. Tell us some of the work you're doing with organizations and how their attitude is evolving rapidly, I think.
It is absolutely changing. When I started doing the empathy research around 2000, even empathy research in neuroscience was meant to be these are emotions, and emotions of other people. How can you do research with it? Now there is empathy research all over the globe. No, it's totally accepted. It's a big field. Social neuroscience is a massive field. The same for mindfulness. At the beginning, people thought, this is an esoteric, strange thing coming from the East, some Buddhist touch, I don't know. But we have done such rigorous science, and we have secularized all these programs. These programs, the language is not religious at all. It is a secular language, which is, you can do it as an atheist. We couldn't do science, if not. So it's this universal capacity. It's cognitive capacity. It's capacity of the body and the heart. It's universal. And because we have done so rigorous science, now the field of mindfulness is burgeoning, and there is mindfulness and compassion and these trainings in healthcare system, in businesses, in leadership programs. Harvard has already started doing that in leadership since many years. There is a lot of MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction program in businesses. We are starting to work with huge companies, with a lot of, like public entities, even ministry. There's even Mindfulness UK, and the parliament in UK is engaging in these practices. There is a huge grant now in UK, millions, doing research on the effect of these trainings in schools to prevent depression and all these other like mental diseases in children. So I would say it's a huge movement, and it will become even more big, because as I said, mental health problems will become the issue of the day, and they are already, but they will even be more important. We have to take care of our mental health so that we can become more conscious as a global society and face the problems we are facing now. We cannot run away anymore. And for that, we need to equip our brains. Now we have to do an almost cultural evolutionary jump. And for that, we need this mental practice as much as we have understood that sport is important for the health of our bodies.
That's exactly what I was thinking as you were speaking, because earlier you said human evolution did not make attention for iPhones.
Yeah.
We just cannot wait for evolution to catch up. I think that the work that you're doing is showing to us that if we want to dramatically accelerate individual and collective improvement, it requires systematic training in this area. And again, we observe the same thing you do, which is that it is becoming increasingly easy for us to explain to organizations the importance of mindfulness and presence. We are indeed talking about compassionate leadership. Those who were in the session yesterday with me will remember that we discussed conscious breathing, we discussed compassion, and we discussed gratitude. So it is becoming increasingly mainstream. And I think this is important for the people who are watching us, because this should help them to turn around and tell their colleagues, look, this is not something that people do in California and they levitate. Meditation is not levitation, and increasingly very serious leaders and very serious corporations are investing in this area.
Actually, the word meditation means, if you transcribe it, it means cultivating your mind. So it is, if you take it out of this kind of strange esoteric voodoo thing, it is cultivating, is training your mind. So it's something very secular. It's not something you need a religious belief for. And I think it's very important to understand that. And also NIH, the National Institute of Health in America, is putting huge amount of monies now in the research of this training, because they have understood how important it is to increase mental health in all our big systems.
One of the questions that came up is, how do we know if we're doing good training? Again, we will make available a slide with a number of resources for you to continue to work in this area. But clearly, this is an area where thinking about practicing is just not going to help much. Thinking about your golf game doesn't improve your golf game enormously. And thinking about maybe tomorrow I'll start doing mindfulness training won't either. So I think Tania said it very well. We are today with mental training where we were 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago with physical training. By now, all of us have understood that there is a certain amount of physical movement and exercise that needs to be done in order for us to be at peak performance and also for us to be physically and mentally well. I think we are now making the increasingly clear case that we also require mental training throughout our lives to be at peak performance, and also, as Tania said, to move to a higher level of consciousness and a more caring society. When we look around, we see a lot of lack of trust, a lot of sense of being excluded and not being respected, and this leads to social unrest. I think it is possible to be very effective from a leadership point of view while being caring and compassionate. And Tania, this session helped us a great deal to become more aware of this and also to start identifying some of the things we can do to move in that direction. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I wish everyone a great day and a mindful and compassionate day.
Yes, thank you. And you can always write me on singersocial. On my webpage. And then I can also send you the original literature if people really want to get into the science or so. So I'm open for, if we couldn't answer all the questions, just write me an email. And
wonderful. We'll send you actually the question on the chat.
Okay,
thanks a lot,
wonderful.
Tania. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good day.